What's up, YouTube? Tenchi Arizonia, the angry Dracolope of the Jackalope crew here, and as you can see, I got my atmospheric lighting worked out. So tonight, I bring you the first story time, simply called the Undead Fox. Now, before I begin, I would like to apologise because I cannot remember the name of the area this occurred in, although it did occur in the New Forest. The specific area of the New Forest I cannot remember the name of, so I apologise in advance for that. However, I am still able to find that area because of a rather distinctive feature, or more specifically, two distinctive features. The first one being the fact that there is a paved road that fords a stream, which is unusual in and of itself because the road is completely paved. In the summer there can be as little as 6 inches of water at this fording point. In the winter it can be as much as 3 feet. About 100 yards from this road there is a rather steep hill where the ground is rather gravelly, although there are patches where people walk regularly that have become quite muddy in winter weather. Now, as I said, this story is called The Undead Fox. And I feel that needs a little bit of explanation. So that's what this story time is about, is explaining this encounter, or at least trying to. See, this was about 15 years ago when I was visiting the New Forest on my own, this specific area in fact, because it was an area I'd always enjoyed going to in the New Forest, and I still enjoy going there today, even though every time I have been there after this encounter, this one being the first, every time I've been there since, I have encountered something else unusual, to say the least. Maybe esoteric or paranormal. Maybe even supernatural are terms you would want to use for this. So, as I said, I was going to this area of the New Forest on a walk and to keep my map reading up to par. And I walked up the hill to the first point of my walk route, which I planned out, and immediately the sweet smell of decaying flesh hit my nostrils. And I know what you're going to say, what do you mean by sweet smell of decay and death? Well, if you have ever come across the dead body of a rat or a mouse, something like that, and you've picked up the smell of its body decaying, think something like that, but about 50 times stronger. Now, I was, and still am, a relatively curious type, so I set about trying to find the source of the smell. And it took me about half an hour, but I did eventually, in fact, find the source. And the source was in a rather advanced stage of decay, a fox body. And I say a rather advanced stage of decay because part of its rib cage was showing and the eyes were completely gone. And when I say a part of its rib cage, I mean a part of the rib cage the size of my hand. For perspective, I wear large gloves. Medium to large, to be honest. So, here I am, after about half an hour search, and I come up on this body. Large section of the rib cage exposed, as I said, about the size of my hand. Both eyes gone, and the fur, I could tell by the state of the fur that this body had been there a week, maybe more. Because, I don't know if you're aware of this, but as a body decays, all the sheen, all the colour in the fur fades out. You get no sheen left in the fur. It just looks like something you would sweep up from your pet. Grey, matted, no shine to it at all. So I knew for a fact this fox had been here at least a week, maybe longer. And what I thought I would do is I would mark the point where I found the fox and come back and investigate more later. Well, I turned around to get a bearing, because where I was at the top of this hill is completely flat, just heather, a few sparse trees, and I wanted to get a distinctive landmark, so to speak, so I could actually find my way back. I was turned away for about 30 seconds looking for a landmark, and I did find actually a big old gorse bush, mostly burnt out, that fit the bill. Nothing else like that in the area, so I used that as a bearing. By the time I turned back, however, the fox was gone. Now, there were paw prints leading up to where the body laid, but no paw prints leading away from where the body lay, which kind of freaked me out at the time, because dead bodies just don't get up and walk away. And even if a dead body did get up and walk away, it would leave tracks. So obviously at this point I was kind of freaking out, and still being the curious sort I was, I tried to find some tracks to try and explain where the bloody hell this body had got to. As I said, bodies just don't walk up. Get up and walk away, sorry. So I'd done a search of the area briefly and walked back to where I'd crested the hill to get on this area on top of it. That was about 30-40 yards from the body, or where the body was, should I say, and it was there in a patch of muddy trail where people walk their dogs, and people walk themselves actually as well. I found fresh paw prints. Very fresh, in fact, too fresh. And it couldn't have been any dog walkers, because I know at this particular time there had been no dog walkers in the area for a few days at least, and there were no paw prints when I came up the hill, because I walked along that muddy section just off onto the gravel. So here I am in the middle of the New Forest on my own. It's the middle of the day, so nothing too eerie there, although it does add to the strangeness of this encounter, with what appeared to be a dead fox in an advanced state of decay that somehow moved from its resting place without leaving any tracks for a significant distance, before completely fresh paw prints, where there were no paw prints before, show up. So at this point I am clearly on edge and wondering what the hell I should do. Should I report this or something? Could it have been poachers that killed this fox? I don't think so, because the New Forest has tons of people going through it. I don't really think it'd be poachers, and besides the fact this fox looked like it just fell down and died basically. So yeah, kind of an eerie thing to occur. What's stranger though? What is stranger is the tracks, and I actually followed the fresh paw prints. The tracks led back down to the road. They led all the way back down to the road. Completely consistent pacing, consistent spacing between the tracks, meaning a constant speed. Tracks were all the same depth, again, concurrent with a constant speed of travel. And they stopped, again, at the fording point by the road. And as I said, there's quite a bit of distance between the road and the hill, so I'd followed these tracks for a good 100 or so yards, possibly more. I'm not too good at judging ranges, to be honest, not off the top of my head at least. So yeah, that was kind of, at this point I was getting extremely creeped out. Didn't know what the hell to make of it. Wondered if I should report it, and decided not to report it. I thought it would make me sound like a fucking crazy person, to be quite honest. So I went back to the top of the hill and decided to continue doing my walk around the area, using the old burnt out gorse bush as a waypoint, and also marking the depression where the fox was. And I actually noticed something odd when I returned back to where the depression was, and that is the ground immediately where the fox was, so where the fox was laying, there was a depression. Immediately in that depression, there was no plant life. None. And I'm talking about an area here that has heather bushes, gorse bushes, ferns, all over the place. It's completely covered. No naked ground once you reach the top of the hill. And here's this completely plant-free section of ground, this plant-free divot the size of the fox, where the dirt is completely dry. And I mean completely, like, you could pick it up and it'd just drift down like sand at the beach in the wind. So that's really fucking unusual. As if a fox getting up and walking away when it's dead isn't unusual enough. So after this encounter, I continued my walk and I got back to the point, because I'd done a circuit, got back to the burnt out old gorse bush around 2-3 hours later. Got to the bare patch of dirt where the fox had lain earlier in the day. And what do I see? Well, what I see is something I cannot fucking explain. And it made me nope the fuck right out of there. Nope, right the fuck out. It's like, nope, not dealing with this. Boom, gone. What I saw was the same fox whose body I had examined earlier. Chunk of the rib cage exposed, the size of my hand, both eyes missing. Fur all grey, tattered and decaying. Standing in this fucking depression where the soil was bone dry, and I use the word bone dry in a completely legitimate way here, and about 20-30 yards behind this fox, a couple of New Forest Park employees, park rangers I suppose you'd call them in the States. I'm not quite sure what you'd call them over here in the UK, because I didn't stick around long enough to find out. I just noped right the fuck out of there. Straight down the hill, back to the road, back to the meeting point where I was being picked up. Pretty fucking freaky encounter, I will tell you. Completely fucking unexplainable. And the strange thing is, the two people that were back from the fox had no apparent reaction to either it or me. And stranger still, the uniforms that they were wearing were not current issue for people who work for the overseeing agency for the New Forest National Park, which is the national trust here in the UK. They were not current issue, even for the time. So, upon getting home, I actually looked up the uniforms just based on what I saw of them. They were uniforms alright for New Forest staff, for National Trust staff who worked at the New Forest. There's only one slight problem with that. The date that these uniforms were issued and the date they were used until was 1903 to 1913. Yeah, you're hearing me right. So, those people, could they have been park rangers, or was there something else going on? Really strange encounter, as I said. And this specific area is really not known for these kinds of encounters. Anyway, that's my story time for the day. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And, well, that's all for now. If you like it, please subscribe, comment, and share. And remember, don't get eaten, because there are things that go bump in the night.
I'm the Dracolope, bitch.